Hello and welcome to the Green 19 podcast. I'm Dominique Yates, joined as always by Ryan Wood and Tom Silverstein. Just a couple of hours after the Green Bay Packers went 38-10 over the San Francisco 49ers, getting a little revenge from last year's playoff loss. The Packers are 8-3 on the season and taking care of business in this game before that quick turnaround, playing the Miami Dolphins on Thursday. And we can just run through this game and, as I like to do before every game, just get general observations from both of you guys. And I'll start with you, Ryan. Obviously, the 49ers were shorthanded. We get that, but you still got to find a way to win the game. So when you look at the game, I feel the Packers did what they were supposed to do in this game. Just what were your takeaways from it?
I think it's just that they keep racking up wins, which is hugely important. Always. It's like an obvious statement, but when you're 8-3 and you're third in your division, it just emphasizes how important it is just to win as many games as you can. And, it's obviously interesting. The 49ers were a shell of themselves. They didn't have their quarterback, their best defensive player, starting corner, their left tackle. That's a lot of ammunition that's not in the chamber. But the Packers have had games this season where they didn't have their starting quarterback, and they figured out how to win those games. Sometimes it's who the opponent is, too. I mean, the Packers, when they've started Malik Willis twice, when Malik Willis played a second half of a full game, that they were fortunate that all three opponents were AFC South. Tonight, the 49ers didn't have the AFC South. They weren't in Jacksonville. They had a good Packers team when they were depleted. So there's some fortune there for sure. But at the end of the day, fortune doesn't go into the win-loss record. It's just wins and losses. They're 8-3. They continue to rack up wins. They have a chance to go 9-3 on a short week here, home against the Miami Dolphins on Thanksgiving. And that's exactly what they need to do because their division is absolutely loaded.
Tom, just, what were your takeaways and just observations from the game?
I thought they made some advancements a little bit offensively, but, they were widely just the team that we've been watching for the last couple of weeks. I didn't see any big difference other than, they had 3 takeaways, but that's who they were up to the last 2 games. They hadn't had any takeaways in the last 2 games. So I didn't really see anything that told me they're going one direction or the other this season. I think it was kind of a continuation of where they've been. And whether they're going to take a jump, we might not know until the Detroit game. Or, Miami's no pushover. They'll be facing a really good quarterback. So, but it's possible we won't know, who they are until they play the Lions.
Do either of you get the sense that I have? And I don't know if I'm just way out in left field on this, but they won 38-10 tonight. Mm-hmm. And yes, it was a team that was depleted, but this is 38-10 is what you should do against a depleted team. They did what they should do. And yet I still don't feel like they're playing all that well. And it's weird because they're 8-3. They just stopped the 49ers and made them look like a depleted team because they're doing what they should do, but I feel like there's a lot left out there. Am I crazy in feeling that? And you guys feel similarly?
Well, yeah. Go ahead, Shmuley.
Offensively, if Jordan Love is throwing for 160 yards, now he should have had another 60 yards on the I picked up the wrong one. On the Christian Watson touchdown or drop touchdown. Yeah. But you just don't. They're just not. The first quarter, they looked like the offense that we had seen. They were running the ball really well. They're hitting the flats. They're moving the ball. And then they kind of got into a funk where they were just trying to push the ball down the field, and they started to look a little bit more like the team that was struggling when Love was hurt. So I don't know. No, I don't think they look as good as Detroit. I don't think they look as good as Minnesota, and I don't think they look as good as Philadelphia.
I would disagree with Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm not impressed with Minnesota.
Certainly Detroit. That's the class of the NFC and the division. But to me, I just feel like they're a good team that's kind of just skating through. And maybe they kind of – I wonder if they know for a lot of that they're good enough to skate through a lot of times. But you do that, and that's how patterns and habits get created. And eventually, they can skate through against the 49ers. honestly, they can probably skate through against the Miami Dolphins at home. There's a lot of teams that they're good enough just to skate through against. But you do that long enough, and that becomes a habit, and you run up against someone who eventually you can't, like Detroit, that you can't skate through. And that, to me, is that's the issue. But on the other hand, I can't help but wonder, my goodness, if they ever put it all together, if they actually put a consistent game together, this team has the potential, in my opinion, to be the best team in the league. That's their ceiling. I just don't know if they ever get there.
It's easier said than done, but we've talked about this many times. When you look at this team, you don't see a bunch of holes, right? You see, especially now the last couple of weeks, Jordan Love has improved. You've seen different receivers make some plays, whether it's Christian Watson last week. I know Dobbs had, 2 drops, but overall he had some nice catches, and Jaden Reed has been consistent. The defense got some pass rush, got some sacks. They had some takeaways. So there's plenty of pieces there with this team. Josh Jacobs, Xavier McKinney, Brandon McManus, they fixed some of those kicking struggles. So there's pieces in place for this team to be really good. And I think, maybe 1 or 2 games this season where you could feel like they put it all together, maybe the Cardinals and maybe one other game. It's like, okay, they put it all together, 4 quarters, complimentary football. They did it at times in this game, but, it is fair to say there has to be another level to this team, but who knows if they'll get there.
Well, I don't know. We don't know that for sure.
Fair.
Because,
that's fair.
A lot of what is being, assumed was that all these guys who kind of came through last year are going to take another step forward. And, it's very possible that, some of these guys have hit their ceiling. They're not first-round picks. They're later-round picks. I'm talking specifically about the wide receivers. It's just possible that that's who they are. And we're not going to see some kind of bust-out 440 yards per game offense.
Yeah.
I also think defense, I still think there's no pass rush. I think they can't get to anybody with 4. They were facing a team that really didn't have a lot of outlets. His option was George Kittle. Hopefully Deebo Samuel is most of the time double covered. It's not a good measure of where they are. The turnovers are always big, but yeah, I don't know. I think maybe it's possible that we're just seeing the team that they are, and that there is no, huge jump with them.
I think that's what's fascinating. Part of why I joked I was looking forward to this game up until about 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And then when Bosa goes down, Purdy goes down.
Too.
Because, throughout the week we were talking because, okay, they didn't play well against Chicago. They had a tough performance in Detroit. Bye week, it is, okay, so what are you going to do in this game with some veteran players and a lot of talent? But you just didn't get the opportunity to see that. So I think that was kind of unfortunate.
Do you know where this line ended up at before kickoff?
The last I saw was 5.5. 5.5. That was the last one I saw.
Like Thursday, or even maybe initially after the announcement Friday. Quickly, it was like 2. I should have ran to Oneida, man. That is the easiest line that you could pop. Like Packers -2 against a shell of 49ers. Yeah, no, that's just a random thought. That one's for free. But man, that would have been a good run.
Yeah. As far as offensively, though, I do want to stick with this. And here, this is one guy I don't question anything he does, and that's Josh Jacobs. You bring him in, you start. You look at those first 4 or 5 games, and he was trying to get that first touchdown, and then he finally gets one, and he really hasn't looked back this game. 26 carries, 106 yards, 3 touchdowns, tied a career high. Just, you talked to him in the locker room, Ryan. Just what do you make of not only his performance, but just how much he's enjoyed being a part of this organization, after coming from the Raiders?
There's a lot to get to with Josh Jacobs. First of all, I'm glad I don't have to say anymore. I think Josh Jacobs is the answer in the red zone, because now we know Josh Jacobs is the answer in the red zone. All 3 touchdowns from the 1-yard line. They didn't try to overcomplicate things. They just lined it up and realized they got one of the best running backs in the NFL. just pounded home with him. I mean, that's not like he had a lot of holes on the that last touchdown run. He ran over 49ers safety from 2 yards out. I mean, in the backfield, just plowed through him. Like, that's what he does. So, that he entered as third in the league in rushing, but tied for 25th in rushing touchdowns with 4. Among the top 10 rushers in the league, Josh Jacobs and Najee Harris were the only two that didn't have at least 6 rushing touchdowns. Now he's got 7 rushing touchdowns. Only the third time in his career that he's had a hat trick. First time since 2022. This, it was interesting. Josh Jacobs said he jokes with Matt LaFleur all the time about, hey, man, just give me the ball in the red zone. And finally he did. But it's not just Josh Jacobs. I asked Josh Myers, you feel like this is it's an identity now that you guys have in the red zone? He said he thinks a message was sent tonight. A statement was made, and maybe they didn't intentionally mean to make it, but he said it's going to be in everyone's mind now. Like, yeah, in the red zone, give Josh Jacobs the football and go back to that because you saw what he can do. I think that you got to see more of that, not less. That's got to be the identity for this team in the red zone from here on out. It's a cold weather team, Green Bay outdoors, cold weather back. You're going to see that a lot more. Is it going to be this week is the question, because it's a short week and he just had 26 carries, 19 in the first half. That's the big question going into the Miami Dolphins 4 days later. What kind of workload can this guy have? Matt LaFleur said that he feels confident, feels good about the backfield depth with Emmanuel Wilson, who's running pretty well, 9 carries, 41 yards, 4.6 yards per carry. Brooks, is another guy that they can give it to. But to me, how much can Josh Jacobs take the ball? He's done this before. He's 2022. He had 26 and then 27 carries on a Sunday to Thursday game. He's done this before. Can he do that again? Will they need him to do that again is the big question for this week.
Yeah. I guess, what do you just make of what Josh Jacobs has done to this point in Green Bay?
Yeah, I think he's been good for these games at Lambeau Field. And I'm starting to think that the Packers are built a lot like a dome team. I expect their passing game to be better when they go to Detroit, when they play at Minnesota. They're so based on speed, their pass game, that I don't know if that shows out as much here. Jacobs is for sure a winter back. You can feed him all day long, and what he did was very impressive today. Teams. I am a little surprised that teams. I think the 49ers started to bring the safety up and tried to take him out of the game, and it was a little tough sledding there. But what I didn't see was them take advantage of it, the Packers. I thought they could have. They had some chances to take advantage of it, and they didn't. So I don't know. I don't know what. The passing game to me has just not been what it should be. And, they're a running team right now, but that's not who they're going to be. Their investment is in Jordan Love. And, I don't think there's any team in the NFL that can go to the Super Bowl just being a strong running team. You got to have a quarterback.
Unless you're the 49ers, but that's probably the one scheme, right?
Yeah, but they get the ball, they rely heavily on their wide receivers. They had some great wide receivers, Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk and Kittle. Kittle is a killer. So anyway, my point being that, they'll ride Jacobs as far as they can, and they'll keep their fingers crossed, I think, on Thursday. But I would be a little bit careful with him. I would certainly get Emmanuel Wilson some carries.
Can I give some potential reasons for optimism with the passing game, and then just if you don't like it, you just shoot me right down. Just smack me. The numbers, first of all. Second straight game, Jordan Love has had a passer rating over 100. Only once previously the first 7 games. First game that he had perfect ball security, no turnovers. He did have a couple bad decisions. It wasn't he threw the interception on the free play. That he knew it was a free play. It doesn't matter. He didn't see the flat defender in coverage to Christian Watson. Guy drops a pick. Could have been a pick there, but it's not. First game without a turnover this season. That, to me, was improvement. I thought the last 2 weeks, his decision-making overall has been much better. It's not like it's been perfect, but it has been much better. The numbers would have been much better if not for the 49-yard touchdown that Christian Watson just dropped. I mean, then you're looking at 3 touchdowns, no picks, over 200 yards. There was a couple drops that Romeo Doubs had as well. You'd expect those guys. Obviously Christian Watson, the drop touchdown reminded me a lot of the first play of his career in Minnesota, where he just dropped the ball in the basket from Aaron Rodgers. So it's not like we haven't seen that before, but one that he's usually going to make. But 2 things that really stood out to me, and I'm not here to say that this will definitively be the springboard for these 2 guys, but the 25-yard catch for Dontavian Wicks, who has been AWOL for most of the season, maybe that's a play that can get him going because he is a talented guy. We've seen that before. They have to get him going. Getting a 25-yarder for him, I think, has the potential to be important. And then they did showcase some of their depth. Malik Heath had a couple nice grabs. Not a guy maybe that you can just ride for an entire game, but when you have depth pieces like that with Romeo Doubs in the concussion protocol, certainly his status for Thursday night is going to be up in the air at best. Having the depth and having those options can be helpful. But those guys under the radar to me, and Jordan Love's improved decision-making makes me wonder if there's reason for optimism with this passing game kind of going forward here.
Agree with the taker? Do you want to smack him?
Please don't smack me hard. Be gentle.
I still see mistakes in the decision making. I thought there was a pass. I can't remember who it was for, but the safety was right in front of the guy. Who was it? It was sort of down
Watson,
the right side,
right? Yeah, there's the one Watson. Yeah, that was the one for sure.
Into what? Yeah. Then he kind of threw the one to Bo Melton that, I mean, he really wasn't that open, and he would have had to lead him perfectly to make that throw. I even thought the one to Doubs wasn't that great. Like, he did have one-on-one, and you count on Doubs to make that play. So I guess I won't have too much of a beef. I thought he could have run more. There were times where they were in man-to-man, and I thought he should have looked to run. One time he tried to, and, well, I think it was twice he tried to and ended up getting sacked.
Oh, yeah, try to step up. Yeah.
Yeah, you have – so it was like he didn't – you have to make that decision, in man-to-man. If those guys aren't open, you can't wait. You got to go. And everybody's got their backs turned to you. And I just thought there were some opportunities there. So, I don't get the feel that he's like right on it. I do think the fact that he didn't throw an interception and, his numbers look a lot better if he hits that Watson touchdown. No question about it. He made a nice throw to Heath. It's just, I don't know whether to think, he's going to turn this big corner yet. I think he did, he's definitely making better decisions than he did, 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And every week before then?
Yeah. But he's got to stay out of those plays that are potential interceptions. I mean, he shouldn't be throwing those, and I don't know. I think LaFleur could help him more too. I think a lot of times they're sending 3 guys in pretty deep routes, and if he's got nothing, sometimes there's not a check down. Sometimes they're keeping a guy in to block, and that doesn't give him anything. So I don't know. I would like to see LaFleur give him more opportunities, dump the ball off, and then see where that goes.
Yeah, that's true. But especially because when I looked at that opening drive that they had offensively, 12 plays.
That was a great drive.
With 67 yards, shoot up almost 8 minutes on the clock, screen pass to Tucker Kraft for the touchdown. I was like, LaFleur's in his bag with the play calls. Love was connecting well. Everything was really clicking. And then they get a field goal the next one, a touchdown after that. But then the rest of the way, I was kind of watching the offense, and they just kind of like they didn't know what they wanted to do. And that was something that really stood out to me because I thought with 17-0, I was like, okay, they'll run away with this thing. But then,
well, they kind of did. I mean, we're talking. They won 38-10.
That's true. Well, yeah. I mean, it's the most points they've scored all
But I
season.
don't
They were
know
5 for 5 in the red zone.
I don't know if they score again if the defense doesn't put them in those positions.
Yeah.
I mean, the defense put them in great positions with those turnovers,
Yeah.
and because they just weren't sustaining drives. So I don't know. Maybe they would have just worn down the 49ers. I mean, we won't know.
More
But
likely. Yeah.
I thought, start of third quarter that they would make some adjustments and there'd be a big, they would start to move the ball again, and to me, it wasn't until McKinney's interception that they were put in really good position and they finished it off.
Yeah.
They did a good job of finishing those, turning those turnovers, 3 turnovers into 3 touchdowns is key. But I just wonder what would have happened if they didn't have those turnovers.
That's the best thing they did tonight was 5 for 5 in the red zone. I mean, as
Yeah,
much maligned as they've been inside the 20, finishing those drives is not nothing. Like that's something tangible for them to build on here because it needed to happen. And Josh Jacobs is a big part of it, but you know what? Tucker Kraft is their second best red zone option. Mm-hmm. He's a guy you just do a little dump off and let him run over people. Let him, do what big, massive athletic tight ends do. Just maul people.
I mean, he ran over Josh Myers, his own teammate, on the touchdown.
So the fact that of their 5 touchdowns in the red zone, they're consistently going to the players that are their best red zone options. I think that, you want to situational football is about mirroring your playmakers with the right situations, and that's doing that. That is something I think they can build on.
Let's jump into the defense for a little bit. Obviously, we talked about the takeaways and some of the things that they did, throughout this game. But sometimes I feel like a broken record when we talk about some of the guys like Xavier McKinney and what he does. But it's pretty just impressive to watch how just one guy can make such an impact on a defensive unit that you look at what they were last year. I mean, as a team, they had 7 interceptions. McKinney has 7 by himself with still 6 games left in the regular season. Just, what's it like just to see just the impact, just thoughts on the impact he's made on the defense?
Yeah, I was curious who was the last person to have 7 interceptions for the Packers, and I went back and looked, and it was Charles Woodson. Charles Woodson had huge impact on the Packers in his best years. I mean, incredible impact. McKinney would have to return some of those for touchdowns to have the same impact Woodson had. But he has really turned their defense into reliable, at least reliable. Like they have played probably good enough to win in every game, but maybe Minnesota.
Right.
And they even recovered there. They played much better in the second half. They're not the reason. I can't really say they're the reason they lost in any game. Maybe Philadelphia, but
they gave up 34 points. Maybe
it's been kind of a combination. So, but the thing about McKinney is that when he gets an interception, it tends to just turn the tide for the defense, and he sets a bar for all these other guys where they want turnovers too, and they're going after the ball and they're looking for turnovers. I mean, the play Keyshawn Nixon made was phenomenal. And we're talking about a guy who has fumbled, I think, 6 times in the last 7 years. So they are going after the ball. And they had gone 2 games without a turnover, and I think they kind of turned the tide for them.
Yeah, just thoughts on just McKinney and what he has brought to this defense as a whole, Ryan.
I wonder if he can win NFL Defensive Player of the Year without a touchdown. That's the one thing to me. I think that he's 100% on the short list. I think that him and Kirby Joseph have been 1A, 1B, whatever place you want to put him as far as best safeties in the league this year. Yeah. He's having a special year. But yeah, he returned the one tonight, 48 yards. But to Spoon's point, touchdowns from DBs are that's when you separate yourself as far as Defensive Player of the Year material. Now there's 6 games left in the regular season, plenty of opportunities. I don't think this was Xavier McKinney's last pick of the season tonight. And the more picks he gets, and if he gets one in the end zone, he's going to put himself in that position. To me, Xavier McKinney's the by far and this is a low bar because the Green Bay Packers, I understand, but in my 11 seasons covering this team, he's by far the best free agent signing they've had. And that's no disrespect to Josh Jacobs, who might be number 2. And I'd probably put Julius Peppers number 3. So, this not a team franchise that makes much hay in the free agent market. But that's the type of impact that these 2 guys, these 2 veterans coming into the locker room have had, but certainly Xavier McKinney.
Yeah. Do you have McKinney pretty high up, too, in terms of free agent signings for the Packers?
Well, my career goes a lot farther back. So
Reggie White?
He's not Reggie White.
Yeah.
He's not.
Charles Woodson?
No, he's not Charles Woodson.
Okay, let's hone it in maybe the decade, the last decade or so.
Come back to my 10 years,
time frame here. Yeah, I mean, Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith were good signings. McKinney, this is 1 year.
Yeah.
So, I'm always reluctant to put labels on guys after 1 year.
Yeah.
We'll see. He's having a great year. But I think the most important part, is that he kind of anchors that defense. And, what I kept wondering was what it would have been like if, let's say the Packers had dealt Jair Alexander instead of Rasul Douglas. Like, Rasul Douglas, to me, and Xavier McKinney would have made a phenomenal pair in the secondary. Because Rasul Douglas is a really brilliant football player, but he wasn't, he needs help. He's not a speedster. He's not a total man coverage guy. You can't put him in that all the time. But, what he and McKinney could have done would have been really darn interesting.
And Rasul Douglas stays on the field.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
And the Alexander thing, they just need him. I hate to say it, but they just need him for the playoffs. Need him to be at his best for the playoffs. Do you want to continue to pay a guy who plays in 48% of the snaps? I don't know. That's another discussion for another day. But McKinney, I don't think they could have played Evan Williams and Javon Bullard the way they did without McKinney there. Mm-hmm. That enabled them to do that. And I just think he just adds brains to their defense.
Yeah. I think that's what's impressed me the most about him and having those conversations. Obviously, when you play for Nick Saban in college, you're going to have a high IQ. You're going to be a student of the game. You're going to learn all of these things on that level.
Yeah, and Saban's is the DB's coach
exactly
most of the time.
So
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to.
No, you're right though. But but still, just to hear, like, he's on the plane, he's texting guys like, send me film on this quarterback, like leaving a game. Just so many little layers and how he studies and prepares, and that's something that's been very impressive to me. And even after this game, asking about the quick turnaround, how do you feel about it? He's like, I like it because I'm already thinking about Miami. I'm already thinking about Tua. I'm already thinking about what those matchups look like. So I think not only has it been big for him in his defense, but you guys kind of alluded to, he's elevated a lot of those guys around him, Bullard, Williams, even like Keyshawn Nixon, guys that have been in the mix. So I thought that was impressive. But as far as the rest of the defense, I don't really have necessarily a question when I talk about this, but when you watch a guy like Van Ness, get a forced fumble, and Carl Brooks once again stepping up, recovering a fumble, and all of those guys, I mean, I don't know, is it a way to springboard these guys, or, is it just, it's
bench them. Bench them like they did Van Ness.
Right.
I
guess is that the motivation?
Sides, they benched him for the whole third quarter practically.
Yeah.
And what did he do? Came back and beat a double-team block with McCaffrey and
77.
Baylor. Yeah. And then still got to the quarterback. So I don't know. Maybe they need to bench him more. Maybe that's part of it.
I was going to say, so for me, Dontavian Wicks is the guy on offense who made a play that they've needed to get started. He makes a play, and maybe, we'll see. I'm not saying I don't know. But maybe that's a springboard. Maybe. They need to get him started. He makes a play. To me, Lucas Van Ness was the guy on defense that did that tonight. He made a play. Maybe. I don't know. That'll be a springboard. They really need him to. Like, they need more from their 2023 first-round pick. He gave them a very big play tonight. If there's more of that, that's huge for this defense. Along those lines, Rashawn Gary, very gradually, inch by inch, is giving more production. Third straight game with at least a half sack. He now has 3.5 sacks the last 5 games. These are very pedestrian numbers for Rashawn Gary. This is not breaking the bank.
Fumble though, too, so that's big.
But he's making plays, and if he can build on this, he's up to 4.5 sacks on the season. Mm-hmm. It looks like he's starting to get more comfortable with the 4-3 potentially. If Rashawn Gary, if Lucas Van Ness, if Kenny Clark ever gets a sack, if these guys can start playing up to their pedigree, it changes what this defense is able. Because I'm with Spoon. Without a pass rush consistently, it lowers your ceiling. There's a limit on it because then you're just living off takeaways. So while the pass rush was not dynamic tonight, I did think that the fact that 2 sacks came from Rashawn Gary and Lucas Van Ness, getting your edge guys going potentially a little bit, could be something that they can build on.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to start somewhere. That's what I look at.
It needs to start there. It needs to start with they need more pass rush production from their edge.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that they started the game with Colby Wooden at defensive end.
Yeah, they only had one rusher,
that
right?
Was, that was a message too. Like Enigbari, Van Ness, you're not starting. Yeah. We're putting Colby Wooden there. He's playing hard, and he's been a good player. Now, they didn't play him a ton there after that, so it's possible that it was first some double tight end or something like that. But he's got the kind of size and decent pass rush ability that, maybe they play him on early downs and just limit those guys to passing downs. But I think there has to be some kind of consequences. So if you're not getting to the quarterback, then you're not playing. Yeah. Which one of you is going to get to the quarterback? And then we'll reward you with snaps.
What I wonder, and I've said this before, but I wonder if this is an issue where there is a solution. Because to me, something's just not adding up here. If this continues, if they don't change this, you either got to change the scheme or change the personnel. Because you've got a bunch of 3-4 defenders that are playing 4-3, and the production hasn't been there. So there's still 6 games left. There's likely the playoffs after that. This is not a conversation for right now. But I am seeing on the horizon, something's not adding up. And this offseason, wherever it ends, if it continues this way, you either change the scheme or change the personnel. There's no other option there.
Yeah. I mean, if this is what you want to do, if this is your system you want to run, that's the key. But also, it kind of goes back to this point, the point Spoon made earlier. Maybe just this is who they are. Like, this is the team. Maybe they just can't do some of these things that they need to do to have some success. But
yeah, I will say that I don't think there's anything wrong with the scheme. I think the scheme is good. I think what you've seen is, compared to other schemes, is that they rally to the ball. They're always around the ball, multiple guys. Can't recall like a ton of busted coverages like you would see guys running free everywhere in Joe Barry's system.
Right.
They give up completions, but it's not because they're just blowing it and they don't know where each other are supposed to be, and you don't see guys looking around like where were you. I think that, and the fact that they played the run pretty good. They played it really good tonight.
Yeah.
I think I like the scheme.
Yeah.
And I think it's with the right players, it can be pretty good. I think the 49ers played decent today, and they didn't even have Bosa. So they play the same scheme.
Yeah.
The problem with the scheme, though, and I don't even want to say it like that. I don't know if it is a scheme. It's either the scheme or the personnel. The problem is this scheme with this defensive front personnel is not getting the type of pass rush productivity that you need to win championships in this league. It's just not happening, and it's been 11 games now. Maybe that isn't the scheme. Maybe it's the players. I don't know what it is. All I know is that the productivity from a pass rush standpoint with the defensive front four has not been there near the level it needs to be the type of defense that can go out there and not just have to get 3 takeaways in a game to go and win. Like that, I don't know why it is. I can't say it's a scheme. Maybe the players. But it's not there.
Yeah, I mean, you got 6 games left in the regular season, so everyone's playing for the playoffs. So it'll be I don't know. I'm curious to see what game by game looks like. But like you said, we are 11 games in, so you can say that window of how much better you're going to get kind of starts to close slowly but surely. So I guess as far as with the defense, really the only assignment that I guess it was a missed one was the Kittle touchdown before half. It's like Quay Walker started on the guy, and then Evan Williams veered off. I guess was that supposed to be more Williams was supposed to cover Kittle there or Quay Walker? I know you might have to go back and
I think
check
they
the
just
film.
put. I think it was a really well designed play, and they put Quay Walker in a pickle.
Yeah.
So he had to decide. McCaffrey came out of the backfield, and maybe they didn't expect that, and he had to decide: do I go with Kittle or do I go with McCaffrey? Mm-hmm. I would guess they'll tell him next time go with Kittle. Javon Bullard was down there near McCaffrey, but I don't know that if Allen threw it to McCaffrey, I think it would have been a touchdown. So I think they just got out schemed down there. I got to look at it again, but I saw the replay. To me, it was just like he moved towards McCaffrey, and how can you blame him for doing that? Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, it was interesting. The one thing I'll just say, just as a sidebar, that double reverse flea flicker.
Oh my God.
That was
great.
That was so great to watch.
I asked several guys about it, and they're like, McKinney was like, I've never seen that. He's like, that was what did he say? That was a badass play or something like that.
Yeah,
I forgot what he said, but it was really good. And then I saw someone on Twitter said that he stole it from Colorado, ran it against Kansas on Saturday. I don't remember. Was it similar?
It was similar. Yeah, sure was. Because Shador, I feel like he threw it to Travis Hunter like on that screen maybe.
And it was a flea flicker?
Yeah.
To start?
Yeah. Don't quote me on that, but I didn't watch the game in full, but I saw some of that.
These guys steal stuff, and I'm like, so Shanahan watched it on Saturday and then put it in.
Yeah, it's hard to
They didn't even
believe.
practice it.
Yeah,
so
no.
I don't know. Maybe he and Dion have been talking.
Or maybe he had that play in his back pocket, saw it yesterday and say, hey, maybe that is a good play to throw in.
It is a hell of a play.
Yeah, that was really cool to watch. As we near the end, is there anything with special teams that stood out outside of, McManus?
Well, I want
that 51-yarder.
I want to say real quick before we go to specials. I can't say this with certainty, but I thought this might have been Quay Walker's best game of the season.
He was active.
7 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a pass defense that was, his 27th, 100th dropped interception in the NFL.
It's uncanny.
Whew.
He has the worst
Some guys
hands.
just can't catch, man.
And he's
You
one
know?
of them.
You ever see kids? Some kids just naturally catch the football, right? Or the baseball. You're playing out in the backyard. Some kids, the glove's over here and the ball's over here, and they just don't have it. You just can't do that.
Or your hands, they teach you to put your hands like this, and his are like one's at a 60-degree angle and one's at a 90 or a 40-degree angle or so. I mean, they're not even close to each other.
Quay Walker he's a linebacker for a reason.
Get him on the jugs machine.
But he played linebacker really well tonight, I thought. A lot better than he has
I think he
been.
did have a good game from what I could tell.
He had
shot some gaps and got after McCaffrey.
The penetrate, they really, as a pass rusher, he got some pressures. And I forget who it was against, but the one tackle for loss where he was able to beat a block on the perimeter and he got into the backfield. He finished the play. There just hasn't been near enough of that type of play from Quay Walker, and to see it, you know it's there, right? He's put it on film. If it ever gets consistent, and it was a good Mike linebacker play, you know? I mean, that's what a Mike linebacker does. We just haven't seen it. That's another guy. There's some guys on this team, and this is kind of the theme of the night, but there's some guys on this team that haven't been bringing it to the level that this team needs them to take that next leap. And they had some plays tonight, some improvements and better games. If they're able to do that, this team can take a step. If not, if this was a fluke, a one-off, then this team will be what it is. I mean, that to me was what it hinges on.
Yeah, and in that same vein, I thought for sure they would keep trying to go to Christian Watson. Like even I thought that when they were down at the 1 and through to Heath, just throw him in there and get him a touchdown just so he can erase that, because that can be a real mental block. He recovered from the one in Minnesota, and had a great true, but then was on fire.
Right.
I mean, had an incredible stretch of games. So we'll see how it affects him here, but. I think Love wanted to get him the ball too. I think that's why he forced that one. Yeah. I agree. I think it could do something for Wicks. It could do something for Van Ness. It could do something for Quay Walker. They need those guys. If they're going to make an advancement, those are some of the guys that got to come through for.
Yeah. As we near the end, though, any final thoughts on just the Packers or, like I said, special teams or anything you want to hit on? Spoon, you want to start off?
I was just kind of curious and looking, and, the two quarterbacks they're facing the next 2 weeks are two of the top 5 in passer rating. Mm. And they've thrown together, this is Tua and Goff, they've thrown like 13 interceptions together. So I don't think they're efficient guys. And so Tua, I know the Packers had a game where they just totally, screwed him up with their blitzes and their coverages, but I think he's probably gotten better since then. It could be a tough matchup playing those two guys, and the turnovers might not come.
Makes you wonder what the plan's going to be, and I think the plan certainly for Jair Alexander is you want him in Detroit, but not having against Tua and Tyreek Hill is not ideal.
No,
it's not ideal.
No. Who do you? Well, you just do what everybody else did. Now they faced Tyreek Hill down in Miami, and they did a great job against him, but. That's a tough one.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm interested in the matchup as well, and just how do you make it work? Like I said, what do you get more from Carrington Valentine and Stokes and a lot of those guys in that back end, and it's just going to be an interesting matchup on Thursday, and I'm just wondering how the team will come out. He said he played, even though the San Francisco has struggled, they still take pride in playing physical and hard-nosed, so you still had to battle. And the players admitted, it was still a physical game to go through. I asked Josh Myers, because Xavier McKinney liked the fact it was a quick turnaround. I asked Josh that question, do you like it? He said, no, I would have liked the extra time off to get some rest, especially him with the wrist injury that he's battled. But
you know what would help?
What's that?
Not having Jair Alexander, you know what would help? Consistent pass rush. That's what they need. Oh, yeah. And not to get we'll get into more the Miami during the week, but that's the answer there.
Yeah.
Boy, it sure looks like the Packers have their 2 kicking positions on lockdown now, doesn't it? Brandon McManus, 7 for 8, drills a 51-yarder. This is weird, but the only field goal of at least 50 yards this season the Packers have attempted. I think he's perfect on 13 extra point attempts now this season. He's only missed 1 kick, which was a 45-plus yarder and a downpour against Detroit. Mm-hmm. Instantaneously, he has stopped this revolving door that the Packers had a kicker, which against this team, this opponent tonight, pretty significant that he drills that 51-yarder and is perfect on his extra points, because obviously the kicking was an issue the last time the 49ers and Packers played.
I know it's nice not to have to open up with kicking drama on a podcast.
It's you telling me. Oh, my goodness. I got so tired of saying, make your kicks. And Pat O'Donnell, wow. I look at the box score, and my mind goes back to 2022 because Pat O'Donnell's a former Packer. No, Daniel Whelan, he had a really nice night again. 48.8 yards per punt, 38.5 net. Pat O'Donnell actually was a little bit better on 3 punts, but not by much. He had one inside the 20. Pat O'Donnell had one inside the 20, 59-yard long. I am just going to say it again for the 12th time this season. Daniel Whelan's a star. He's a star punter. I don't care. That might be a bit of an exaggeration. Don't care. He's a superstar punter.
I mean, he's the way he flips the field.
He kills the football. It is really impressive to watch.
He makes an impact. So there's, like I said, it kind of goes back to this team. There's plenty of bright spots throughout the roster, and once again, if they can all put it together and just connect and click and play clean football, the sky can really be the limit for this team. But, I mean, they still found a way with 38-10 victory, convincing victory over the San Francisco 49ers, 8-3 on the season. We'll try and go for that 9th win on Thursday, taking on the Miami Dolphins, and we'll be checking back in throughout this week as the Packers get ready for yet another home game. Thank you all for checking out the Green 19 podcast. For Ryan Wood, Tom Silverstein, I'm Dominique Yates.